The reason why 95% of SMMAs fail is because of this. And that's the 4 traps that every SMMA owner can fall into. And these 4 traps completely obliterate any chances of you growing your agency and scaling it past 10K a month. And I call it the civilian mindset. Unfortunately, by the end of this video, many of you are going to realize that your SMMA is not growing because of that one mistake, because you've fallen into one or more of these 4 traps. And if you are, all of the effort in sales call, outreach, and angry client management is quite useless. But good news, now you're going to learn what these 4 traps are, how you can get out of them, even if you've been caught in them for months, years, or even decades, and how you can scale your business afterwards. Just like Lena, Liz, and Tony did. Now, before we get into it, let me explain what a civilian mindset is. You can also call it the employee mindset. I come from a former communist country, and even after communism ended in 1989, communist parties remained very strong in these countries well into the 90s and 2000s. And that's because people were nostalgic. They didn't mind the lack of freedom and economic opportunity in the communist era, mainly because it provided them with a certain degree of safety and predictability. If you weren't particularly skilled or smart, you didn't have to accomplish much in a communist country, as long as you shut up and toed the line. Especially when you were working in some level of the government bureaucracy, you were guaranteed a pretty safe paycheck and a decent enough life. And many people prefer that over a life of freedom and opportunity. And while there are many differences, there's also a few similarities between being comfortably employed today and what life was like under communism, especially when it comes to shutting up and towing the line. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. But since you are watching this, you're probably running your own B2B service business, and you need to change your thinking. You cannot be trapped in an employee or civilian mindset if you're running your own business. And if, like me, you've been employed for many years before you started your business, you've been marinating in an employee mindset, very likely. And even if you're just starting out, if you're young and you're just starting your business, you have been at least surrounded by people who have had an employee mindset and therefore passed it on to you. People like your parents, your teachers, and employee culture as a whole. So what both post-communism Eastern Europeans and you as a business owner need to understand, that it's that employee mindset, that civilian mindset that made you a useful servant to the system and a good cog in the wheel in their machine. That is exactly the thing that will keep cropping up in many different guises, very often from complete left field where you don't expect it. And it's that mindset that's holding you back from reaching your full potential as a business owner. And the 4 traps that we're going to be talking about today are the main reason why many agency owners are in this state of constant economic anxiety. They have cash for the next 2 or 3 months and never know where their next client is going to come from. But you are watching this video, so you clearly want to get out of this employee mindset and want to get into the business owner mindset. So enough of me ranting and raving. Let's get right into it. The first trap, selling to your skills rather than selling to a market. So we recently signed on someone who had a really bad offer, and he came up with that offer when he was thinking about what he could sell. Now, he didn't only have a bad offer. In addition to that, he also had a pretty bad market to sell into. And that is classic employee style thinking. He started from the point of, what are my skills? What can I do? And who can I sell this to? And for employees, this is the right way to think. After all you need is one employer, and for many years you're going to be fine. You don't need to be selling your skills to multiple people at the same time. However, as a business owner, you do need to go a little bit broader. You need to be selling into a market where you can find different people who you can actually sell this thing to. And you also need to constantly think how you can repackage it so that you can appeal to different sub-personas in your market. And because our client is a smart guy, he acknowledged that his offer wouldn't get him there. The market is too small, he can only charge very little, and many of his competitors have VC funding. So he would always be struggling. Now, the flip side, if he goes into a new market, the problem is that now he'll have to learn new skills in order to serve that market. And that is scary. But at the same time, it's a vast market that he's entering, and there's a ton of opportunity. So it's going to maybe take a little bit longer that he will sign up clients, but those clients will be very profitable. And it'll only be a matter of time before we sign clients successfully. And just like that, he escaped the first trap, which is trying to sell an existing skill just because you have it, regardless of what the market wants. Instead, what you need to do is to mold yourself to suit what the market wants. Now, you cannot do that just in any way. You need to figure out what can be sold scalably and then adjust your offer accordingly. Because otherwise, you will fall in trap number 2. Trap number 2, civilians don't know how to turn an idea into a business. So here's the thing. Having a job is a little bit like driving a car, and having a business is like owning a plane. Both will get you to your destination. The difference is that the plane takes you there considerably faster, that you will travel in much more style, and that you don't have to face the indignities of modern road traffic. But you'll only get there if you know how to build it and steer it. Now, most people affected by a civilian employee mindset who enter the business game, they do something quite curious. They choose a plane that can theoretically get them anywhere in the world, but they use it like a car and only drive it around. I mean, you can use a plane like a car. They cover small distances with a vehicle that could theoretically do so much more for them. In real terms, they've built themselves a job, only with much more volatility. They have to work much more, and they're way more anxious all the way. This is also known as a small agency or freelancer career, offering generic services like web design or IT consulting. And then when they go on social media and they see somebody who is in a sort of similar niche as they are, and they're way more successful, they think, damn, this could be me. I'm doing something really similar. But then the idea of soaring through the sky, of actually using this vehicle that they have as a plane, that scares them so much that they retreat into their relative safety of driving the plane as a car. So what do you need to do to avoid this particular trap and to get past 10K and to use a plane as a plane? You need to work on 3 steps. First, the vehicle needs to be built in a way so that it can withstand the pressures of flying. It's all about architecting the machine. It needs to get and stay up in the air. Now, how do we translate this into business? Now, if you approach 200 strangers in your target market and you make them an offer and nobody even wants to talk to you, then you have a plane without wings. It's a vehicle incapable of flying. You have an offer that nobody needs. You need to have an offer that if you approach 200 strangers, at least some of them want to talk to you. To make your plane ready to fly, the offer needs to tick the following boxes. First of all, it needs to present a clear ROI. It has to solve a problem that significant amount of people have in your target market, and the people in the target market need to be relatively easy to find. Everything else will take you so much longer to get traction. An example of a good offer would be a cold email marketing agency who gets paid per appointment, and they offer that service to social media marketing agencies. SMMAs are easy to find, they always want more clients, and they only pay on results, so there's no risk for them. Total no-brainer offer. To find out if your offer is good or bad, just ask yourself, am I able to provide a good ROI either by decreasing somebody's cost or by increasing their revenue in 6 months or less? If not, your offer is not yet good enough for outreach. And outreach is the lifeblood of a plane in that analogy. You need to be able to approach strangers with your offer. And of course, you can build a business with a weaker offer. For example, just like web design will build you a beautiful website, but it will take much longer, and very often the plane will not be flight ready unless you are like in the top 1% of web design agencies. Second, now that we added wings to the plane, you need to have the skills to fly that thing. I once worked with a client who I had to be super careful with. She was quite sensitive, and every time that I suggested that she should maybe change an activity that she was doing, maybe drop one activity and do another, I always felt this sense of indignation, like she was offended that I was criticizing her. She insisted on writing very long form LinkedIn articles with like very big paragraphs. And these articles were unfortunately not very well written. She was also quite the intellectual, and she considered the way how people write on LinkedIn beneath her, all these one-line paragraphs. It was just too dumb, she felt. We also spent a lot of time debating on whether and how she should do cold outreach. I suggested that she needs to do a certain amount of volume to have success, but then there was a conference that she went to, and then she got sick and couldn't attend for 1 week. So on average, she was maybe reaching out to 1 potential stranger per day, which is way too low. Like I say, at the very minimum, it needs to be 20 per day. Better at some point to scale it to 100 a day. And 100 a day will get you to 10, 20K a month pretty reliably. This client, she was a little bit like a pilot who didn't want to fly the plane. We had a good offer that I'm sure she could have sold, so the plane was actually in good working order. But unfortunately, she, despite my best efforts and sufficient warnings at the beginning of the program, resisted my efforts to teach her the piloting skills that would allow her plane to take off. And the piloting skills, they are both hard and soft skills. And the hard skills are mainly in the domain of client acquisition. So learn to talk to strangers, learn to sell to them, learn what a good offer is. And then also operationally, can you actually outsource certain aspects of your work to other people so that you're not completely swamped by doing the client delivery work yourself? And the soft skills are what you need as a foundation to learn the hard ones. And those are skills like not panicking under pressure, staying disciplined with your sleep and nutrition, working in a very structured way, not getting down because you had a bad month, and so on. Third, now that we have the wings and we also have the skills to fly the plane, now we need sufficient speed to get the plane to take off. And this is what most people totally underestimate. Every single self-made millionaire I know has worked 60 hours or more during their business takeoff time, and they were willing to do it indefinitely of how long it would take. They didn't put a timer to it and say, oh, I'm going to give myself 6 to 12 months and then I'm going to go back into employment. It was a burn the ships type of decision. They said, I'm going to work all the time for an indefinite amount of time until I get that result. And a plane, a real plane, actually uses between 5 and 7 times more fuel per meter of distance covered during takeoff than when it's up in the air and it's cruising. So the effort to get a business off the ground is way bigger. You need to put in way more energy than when the business is already running. And that's where this fallacy comes from, where people look at Jeff Bezos and say, oh, look, Jeff Bezos is getting up at 9 a.m. in the morning, so I can do that too. Well, he's doing that now. When he was becoming the Jeff Bezos he is today, I can tell you he was not getting up at 9 a.m. in the morning, or he was. That's because he was working until 4 a.m. the last night. And so just like a plane uses more fuel during takeoff, you need to work 5 to 7 times harder than when you're a millionaire, when you have a business that's running and everything is going on autopilot. This truth is so hard to swallow that so many people constantly delude themselves and think they can cut corners and they sort of negotiate with themselves. Oh, can I actually work? Well, I have kids, so I don't really know if I can put in so much work. If you're not willing to put in the sacrifice, it's just not going to materialize for you. And I'm sorry if this is bad news, but this kind of takeoff speed that you need to reach with your plane is a non-negotiable. And maybe there are a few people that you know that somehow made it where it seems like they did not have to put in so much work, or that success was really fast for them. And it seems like that kind of shortcut could be available for you as well. But I recommend that you approach the attitude of David Goggins, who says, there are no shortcuts for you, Goggins. Other people may have them, but they're not available for you. You have to put in the hard work. You have to put the goal above your level of comfort. Deny yourself and your preferences. Do a dopamine reset and don't do anything pleasurable for an extended amount of time. That sentiment is at the core of the business owner mindset, putting the goal ahead of your preferences. And it's the hallmark distinctive feature compared to the employee or civilian mindset. The employee says, I'm going to do my best. The business owner says, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Which brings me to trap number 3, listening to your emotions. This takes so many forms, like, for example, being upset about people who DM you on LinkedIn, pitch you something, or cold emails, or allowing challenges in their personal life to affect their business performance. Oh, I had a fight with my wife, so I'm going to take the rest of the day off, even if it's 11 a.m. You have a string of failed sales calls, you make a snap reaction, and you change everything about the business because people are not buying anymore. Or feel you have a craving of chocolate, well, you interrupt your work, you pop down to the corner shop to get some chocolate. Listen, your business is not something that your emotions should have an effect on. Your business is a money-making machine. It's a vehicle that is built for the only purpose to make you money. If you have a machine like that gets you from A to B like a car, the engineer did not let their personal preferences direct what bolt he puts into the car and where. It's not like he looks at a certain nut and bolt and says, yeah, I just don't like how I have to turn this bolt, right? It just doesn't happen. He builds whatever the car needs. Employee mindset people, civilians, they tend to put their personal preferences above what the business needs. They say things like, I don't want to be salesy. When a business owner would say, well, I have my revenue targets for this year, and this last quarter we haven't brought in enough, so I just need to sell more. Civilians say things like, I don't like seeing myself on camera. I'm just not going to do any videos. I just don't like that. A business owner says, well, I don't like seeing myself on videos, but of course I know that I need to put out content. People need to build trust with me so I can do this one too many by putting out videos. So of course I'm going to put out video. The good thing with regarding your business like a money-making machine is also like when a machine breaks, it can be fixed. If there's something that after a while stops working, for example, a cold email angle, well, it can be fixed. You just try a different angle. You just try multiple ones, you A/B test them, and you see, oh, this one has worked. Boom, machine repaired. Civilians are much more like children when it comes to listening to their emotions and their whims. So you have to ask yourself, are you being a little bit of a child when it comes to your business? Are you avoiding uncomfortable tasks that you secretly know that would move the needle a lot? Do you focus on things that you like doing, that bring you pleasure, rather than things that have to be done? Now, the fourth trap is actually the most lethal one, and it will result in you worrying where your next client is going to come from. Trap number 4, civilians don't consciously carve out time and reserve it for client acquisition. Here's how you get trapped in it. So let's say you have a couple of client assignments, but it's not enough. You may be working 20 hours a week. So what do? You start developing some marketing activities. You reach out to past clients, you network a little, you put out the occasional LinkedIn post or 2 per week. And then you get a couple of clients and you get busy. So you work 40 to 50 hours, you drop everything, no more networking, no more LinkedIn content. And then after a couple of months, those new clients have fallen off or the old ones have phased out. And then your activity drops again to 15, 20 hours a week. And so you start to network again and you put out a couple of posts and so on. So it's like a hamster wheel that you're constantly trapped in and that's going nowhere. That's how it goes year in, year out. And you're trapped in this constant cycle between 5K months and 15K months, usually on the lower end of that spectrum. It's impossible to get to and maintain 30K months with this level of activity. What you need to do instead is the following. You need to quarantine off at least 10, preferably 20 hours a week that you will dedicate to client acquisition system building. And here's how you do it. Step number 1, make sure that you can cover all your personal and business expenses working 20, maximum 30 hours a week. At that level, you need to be entering a financial surplus. So do check your hourly rate, right? Many people effectively work on an hourly rate. Even if they say they do project-based, it still breaks down to an hourly rate. You need to be comfortable making whatever, 5, 7, 8K, 10K a month with maximum 20 to 30 hours a week of client delivery work. If you cannot make that, you need to find ways to increase your hourly rate. You got to quote more, you got to ask for more, you have to drop a couple of clients who are paying you too little. If you cannot get to that point, the next step is not going to work. So once you're at that level, and it may take you a couple of months to get there, then you need to quarantine off preferably 20, but at least 10 hours per week where you can build client acquisition systems. And super importantly, these need to be systems that then can be run by someone else, at least to 90%. That is why networking is such a rotten way of getting new clients, because it will always depend on you. It's always going to have to be you who does the networking for your business. It's not scalable. No, instead you have to have systems like cold email sending, running ads to a webinar funnel, right? Whatever it is, it needs to either be paid for or done by other people, which is also paid for. And then step 3, and this is key. If suddenly you get a new client that would theoretically encroach on that quarantine time that you have for client acquisition system building, you must not allow that intrusion. Okay, you have to keep those 10 to 20 hours sacred. You need to keep building the systems. What does that mean? You basically need to sacrifice some margin and get a team, get subcontractors, or maybe an employee if you can afford it, and have them do the work for clients. You can still work as the interface to the client, and then somebody on the back end will help you deliver. The act of quarantining client acquisition systems building, that is the biggest needle mover that'll get you from under 10K a month to 20, 30K a month and beyond. People are so strangely obsessed with doing all the client delivery work themselves so that they completely forget to work on the business rather than in the business all the time. Between delivering to clients and building client acquisition systems, the latter is a much more valuable, much more CEO, much more owner type activity than delivering to clients. And it's far more valuable to the future success of the business. It's what builds enterprise value. Why? Because it's building the machine. You're actually working on the money-making machine. Now, here's a bonus point that is very strong with employee mindset type people. I often hear things like, well, I don't need to make millions in my business. I just need to make enough so that I'm happy and content. It's civilians trying to make a virtue out of their lack of success. To each their own, but it fascinates me that people are actually undergoing the hardship and the uncertainty and the anxiety of building a business without actually wanting to make it as big as they possibly can. You are already taking the risk of failure, so why not put in the effort to make it as successful as possible? Also, why don't you need to make millions? I mean, you're already blessed with an above average IQ. Why would you not capitalize on that? And since you started a business, why would you spend your time in mediocrity instead of building a financial buffer for yourself and your loved ones? What are you going to do if somebody in your family needs an expensive surgery and you have to pay out of pocket? What are you going to do if a war breaks out and you need to leave your country? It has happened. To me, having a business and walking around and saying, oh, I don't need to make millions to be happy is a little bit like having a child and not wanting them to grow up into a person of integrity and character, and to just say, well, at least as long as he doesn't pick his nose in public and gets a job and brushes his teeth in the morning, I'm fine. It's like talk about low-level expectations. Now watch this, because this could change your business in less than 2 weeks. In this video, I break down the system that Matt used to make $30,000 within 11 days of working with me, just by following a very simple formula of activating his network on LinkedIn. If you want to learn how to do it, watch that video. I'll see you there.